Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pod is Cast. Sorry for the lack of posting.
Our fame got too much for us to handle. we had to go underground for a while.
Right, we were too mainstream. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to do so much of a description of a conflict. For the next couple ones, we're actually going to stray away from what we originally planned on doing, which was like an ancient history kind of thing. So for now, we're just going to go over a really cool battle. It's called the Battle of Camaron in Mexico, 1863. And that'll be kind of the theme for the next few podcasts. It'll be kind of one-off battles, and then eventually we'll work our way into World War II, Korea, and so on afterwards.
However, the theme that we are still sticking with is me knowing absolutely nothing about what we're talking about, so don't worry.
Okay, so our story starts in April 1863. A little bit of background on the conflict we will be doing. The French basically wanted money. And they wanted trade, and so conveniently Mexico had some debts they hadn't paid off. So that's grounds for an invasion. So Napoleon III, very unsuccessful military commander, by the way, and this is not Napoleon Bonaparte. This is Napoleon III, who also loses the Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah, it seems like about the biggest qualification he had was the name.
Yeah. That's actually pretty accurate. He was pretty incompetent overall. Anyway, so basically what happened is the French High Command decided to besiege Puebla, which of course everyone else said was a bad idea. All the other low-level French officers said it was a bad idea, but who cares what sergeants have to say? Am I right?
Tell me about it. Fist bump.
And classic French High Command is run by old-style military commanders who refuse to adapt to the world around them and the warfare around them, because that's dumb.
Turns out, the French, right, this next level of military strategy, instead of doing what the rest of the world does and base your promotion structure on skill, the French were just really thinking to the next level and basing it off of money and family ties.
That works sometimes. That's what the British do, but usually back in the day, the rich kids had to go to military school. And Napoleon III is ordering his men to besiege Puebla, which means that they have to have supplies come in. And that means that supplies have to go along the terrible roads coming from Veracruz, which was the French beachhead, going to Puebla. And who better to guard the roads than the French Foreign Legion? Because they're not people, right? That was the French assumption was... I believe the Legion was formed in 1828. Could be wrong on that, but I think that's when it was formed. And it's basically like, let's get rid of a few immigrants and criminals.
Exactly. If they're not French, do they really count as people?
Clearly not. So the road had terrible conditions, of course, because it's a mid-19th century road in the middle of Mexico. Let's see, the men would have dysentery, malaria, yellow fever, which they called vomito negro, the black vomit.
It's considerably scarier.
That's terrifying. Le Cafard, which was just when they kind of go crazy. And on top of that, Mexican soldiers who knew the land and would strike out of nowhere. And you'll see this as in a few episodes we'll do the Battle of Dien Bien Phu and an overview of the French Indochina War. The Legionnaires, they don't get very good supplies. They get pretty awful supplies, actually. So these guys are under command of Jean d'Anjou, Captain Jean d'Anjou. He's a French commander who's a lifelong legionnaire, fought in Algeria, fought in the Crimean War. He lost his hand, I believe, in Algeria, so he was replaced with a wooden hand that was kind of his trademark. So anyway, so they're guarding a huge supply, mostly money actually. It was like, let's see, I have it written down somewhere, 4 million francs, and they had cannons and food and ammunition, and that totaled to 60 carts and 150 mules. So the legionaries are going extremely slowly because mules are
not so fast.
They're not so fast. Right, so they're kind of trudging along this road, and, don't worry, you might get bitten by a mosquito that'll make you vomit blood, and then you're done. So no need to worry.
Turns out the terrain of Mexico is a little different than France.
Take your sweet time on that road, boys.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, he has a scout that comes and tells him. Well, it actually tells his boss. A huge Mexican force is coming. They're going to attack you. To which the guy says, "Oh, you know what? I can spare a few people. I can spare someone to defend." So he spares a whopping 65 men.
Ooh.
Depending, some say like 63 to 65. Not that really makes that big a difference. Oh my God! There were like 3,000 Mexican soldiers. I'll pull up the exact number here really quick. 800 cavalry, 2,200 infantry. So, pretty fair fight.
Yeah, just a few.
And to give a little weaponry background, the French are wearing weaponry. Sorry, the French are wearing bright red pantaloons, and wool blue overcoats, and dark blue kepis, and they're fighting in the Mexican sun.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are they encumbered with wool...
So the French definitely have the advantage here.
Right. Not only are they covered in wool, they're out in the sun, where mosquitoes are killing them. Oh, and they don't blend into any terrain. Because you know what really doesn't work well in the jungle or forest? Or really in the open, as you'll see in a little bit, red pants. Bright red pants. Yeah, go figure, right? But, tell the French High Command something, they really don't care. They're also using... essentially muskets. I think they were rifled muskets, which means they were shooting Minet balls. Pretty nasty little device. But the point is that they took, at the very least, they're getting percussion cap, muzzle loading muskets, which means that you fire a shot, you put it upright, you tear off the cartridge and pour the gunpowder and ball in, ram it down, load it, cock it, put a primer cap on it, then you're ready to go. And that alone takes, I don't know, maybe at the fastest, 25, 30 seconds if you're really speeding through.
Yeah, that's some... 25, 30 seconds is some pretty considerable agility with that, too.
Yeah, and in battle, too.
Exactly.
And 30 seconds is... in World War II, maybe World War I... No, it was World War II. So in World War II, the average life of a frontline machine gunner was 30 seconds. Maybe that was Vietnam. Yeah, it was Vietnam.
Yeah, that's right.
The average life of an M60 machine gunner in the jungle was 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because they'd be picked out. Okay, so you get one shot off, maybe.
Yeah.
Right, so...
Although, to be fair, it's not the,
Yeah, it's obviously not that.
It's not that, yeah.
An M60 is a machine gun. These
are
muskets.
They're muskets.
But the point is that 30 seconds in battle is... My God, that's so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, so... It's Danju, 65 men, three sergeants, or NCOs, so you're corporal, sergeant, such. So they're going through. They find a little village, Hacienda La Trinidad. Probably butchering the pronunciation. I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, but it's all right. And then they see this little house, and they start to. They stop and refill canteens and such, and make a little coffee because. What else are French soldiers gonna do?
Wine.
And then they saw a couple. A few cavalrymen, maybe 800.
Ah, that's it? Oh,
800,
man.
and, they decided that little hacienda, which wasn't looking so bad. So they took cover in there. They initially formed a position called the Hollow Square, so basically the men get in a square and they have their muskets pointed out in all directions. So that way the cavalry, and they have bayonets fixed, so the cavalry is double-lined for volley fire, so the first row will fire, and then while they're reloading, the second row will fire, and then by the time they're done, the first row will be reloaded and ready to go again. And that's in theory. Now, in theory, your men also aren't getting shot, and the cavalry are too scared to charge head-on. It wasn't really the case here. Because what cavalry does is they flank you, and if they can't flank you, you're theoretically safe. However, what they didn't plan for is...
2,200 of them.
Yeah, what they didn't plan for is what if they come head-on, and what if there's a whole lot of them? Okay, so 65... actually 62 divided by 4, basically, and that's how many men are on each front. Not very many at all. You're like 15, 16 guys? That's nothing. So they break, and they decide, you know what, we're going to get in the house. So they run into a little house, not the big one, not Hacienda La Trinidad or whatever. They got into a stable, basically. But don't worry, they were protected by a 10-foot wall. And that was about it. So they start holding off the Mexicans. Oh yeah, and by this time it's midday, so they're having a fun time with the heat. And they've run out of water, because all good battles, you run out of water.
Of course.
So these guys are all non-Frenchmen fighting for the French in Mexico, surrounded by 3,000 Mexican soldiers.
Sounds like a good day.
But they're making pretty good money.
That's true.
So they really just start shooting through the walls. The French do, kind of like on the prairie, like you'll see prairie houses have little slots for shooting. I think they were carving them out with the bayonets to shoot them. And you can only hold them off for so long. So the Mexicans keep offering them to surrender. They say no, and they slowly fall. So Danjou gets shot. The lieutenant got shot. The sergeant got shot. I think it turns out by the end of it, what happened was they shot so much that their guns were getting super hot and they couldn't shoot them anymore. So they couldn't even shoot at some points. So they're just in the house in the sweltering heat with no water. It was such a mess. Such a mess. Okay, sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulty. Anyway, so the guns are too hot to touch, but they have to keep shooting them, so their guns are malfunctioning. On top of that, they're running out of ammunition. They're just getting killed one by one. More Mexican reinforcements are coming, and these guys just don't quit. They just keep going. They're taking the ammunition out from the dead. They're taking the water from the dead. They're trying to volley as close as they can. That's doesn't really work out. Mexicans just keep coming. They eventually are down to... They come down to 5 guys. Okay, so it's 5 guys, 3 of which could move. 2 are severely wounded, of which I think 1 is a corporal. So they each have 1 shot, 1 bullet left. Oh, a cartridge, actually. And the corporal says to fix bayonets and to load their last shot. And so as the Mexicans surround the house and start to build their numbers out around them, they fire their 3, and then they charged out. So they charged out, bayonets faked. It's 3 guys essentially against the world at this point. And the Mexicans just stop them. They don't even kill him. They don't do anything. They stop him. They make him drop their weapons, and they send him to the colonel, who has a pretty famous quote for this. Says they said like, "Oh, we captured these men," and the colonel says, "Pero no son hombres, son demonios. These are not men, but devils," and they let him go. They let him go. They killed 300 enemy soldiers. They shot almost 4,000 rounds of ammunition, and 40 legionaries died.
Damn, out of like, what was it, like 800 soldiers and like 2,200 cavalry? 300 is pretty damn good.
300 is pretty good. So anyway, the story's not over yet. So the French end up not doing so hot in the Franco-Mexican War. They take Mexico City and then put a fake emperor in, and then kind of falls apart afterwards.
The governments always seem to work out well.
Public governments controlled a world away really work super well. So anyway, fast forward a couple decades, and a Mexican farmer is walking over what was once the battlefield and is now his farm, and he's tilling the fields, and something gets stuck, and so he looks down, and it's jammed in there, and it's a wooden hand. So it's the hand of Danjou, and he doesn't really know what it is, and so he takes it to like a local historian to ask him what it is, and he immediately knows what it is and tells him, and they get in contact with the French Foreign Legion, who now have that as the centerpiece of their collection, and they bring it out and parade it every day on the Legion Day, basically, the founding of the Legion. And it's in a glass case, and it's still bent in a way for it to hold a sword, which is what he was holding when he got shot.
Man.
So that's the coolest thing. And
yeah.
It's funny because the French, every time the French past the founding of the Legion have a great last stand or a great military victory, it's usually not actually Frenchmen.
Yeah, funny how that works.
It's usually legionnaires, sorry. It's these are the guys from, I think most of them are from Alsace, actually, because they can't join the regular French military, but they feel, more connection to France than they do to Germany. They're Russians, they're Poles, they're Italians. There are a couple Americans, and not very many Americans have ever been in the Legion.
Yeah, I mean,
you got
I feel like
it's kind of romanticized with like Beaugest and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're looking to join a formidable military and you're American, you don't really have to go all the way to France.
It's kind of an extreme adrenaline junkie kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's one notable American is a guy in Indochina. He's a tank commander, and he's like two cousins removed, and like two great cousins removed or whatever from. It's like Philip Sheridan's descendant.
Oh wow!
And he discovered the first Russian truck in Indochina, and then yeah, not a good sign that the Russians are helping him out. So he's like, oh, look at this track. This is weird. I've never seen these tracks before. Oh, no. Oh, God.
Oh, guys.
So the second battle I want to talk about is the Battle of Saragarhi. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. I'm going to look it up.
Let's do a quick Google Translate of that.
Saragarhi, something like that. So this is taking place. This is another one of my favorite last stand battles, and it's actually not. It's foreign soldiers for an army that's not their own, but this time it's Sikh soldiers, Sikhs fighting for the British Empire in Afghanistan. Yeah, Afghanistan is a graveyard of empires.
Oh, yeah.
They are the Cleveland Browns of imperial territories. No one that goes there comes away with a very successful career.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Britain, Russia, America.
No.
This is kind of, well, actually, I'm pretty sure the Afghans fought off lots of ancient empires because it's such a mountainous country that it's pretty difficult to get around in. You know, but what a fun place to fight in. Blazing hot in the day and literally freezing cold at night. Oh, and tons of mountains.
Perfect. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, exactly. So this is taking place a couple years later. This is 1897 versus 1863 for the Battle of Camaron. But for anyone that doesn't know anything about the Sikhs, they're a very militaristic religion, not really by their own choice. When they were first founded, they were attacked and the Mughals tried to wipe them out, and they ended up having to. Now every Sikh carries a knife on them. So it's part of their,
and
war is part of their
That's the, religion. Infamous kukri knife, right?
No, it's not a kukri, it's ceremonial.
Oh,
kukri is Gurkhas.
Oh, damn, you're right.
Yeah.
My bad.
Anyway, so these guys joined, there's 21 of them, and they joined the British Army. That's a pretty common thing for the Sikhs to do, and especially back 1890, this middle of Victorian era. And they're sent to, again, surprise, surprise, the worst part of the country with the fewest supplies. Because again,
funny thing that empires do with their colonial troops.
Right, exactly right. So these guys were all using Martini Henry rifles, which are a lot quicker, actually, than the muzzle-loading, I think they're called Manelli rifles for the French. But the Martini Henrys, you fire a shot, they're left over from the Zulu Wars, basically. That's why these guys have them, because, God forbid they get some high-tech military equipment this time. So you fire a shot, and then you work a lever, kind of like a cowboy gun, like a Winchester, ejects the shell, you put a new one in, and you close it, and you're ready to go. So it's much quicker. With that being said, they're also still not very accurate. Yeah. These are holdovers from the 1870s, so they're not very accurate. They're actually pretty powerful, but they were made to shoot slugs, essentially. So they're shooting these big lead rounds, not really meant for speed. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't go fast, but it's not very accurate, is my point. But, again, it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick to shoot. So they're up in the mountains of Afghanistan, and I think it'd be Pakistan today, but what was Afghanistan back then. And they're supposed to guard communication posts. So they're like a fort in between two bigger forts. They're a small little one in between two bigger forts, and they're guarding communication wires for telegraphs. And so there are just 21 guys, and then they look out one morning, and they see a mere 8,000 Afghani soldiers. And these aren't any soldiers. These are Afghan tribesmen who are mounted on horseback, who have lived there their whole life and want nothing more than to kill the British and get them out of there. So the commander of the Sikhs sends a telegraph to both forts on either side of them saying, we're under attack, but we're not going to make it, kind of thing. And the forts basically, one of them doesn't respond, and the other one goes, okay, you can fall back, I guess. I don't think the British really understood. Obviously, that's not what they said. That's a paraphrase. But the British didn't really understand what was going on. So the Sikhs decide they're going to fight it out. They're going to make a last stand, and they're going to die. They're going to die trying. So they're up on the top of a hill. The Afghans have to come towards them, so they just lay volley fire into them, kind of like the Zulu Wars were stripped. If you've ever seen the movie Zulu, that's what it would have looked like. Except they're shooting downhill, which is not easy to do, especially in the Afghan mountains. And the Afghans eventually make it over the hill, which then make it into the fort, which then turns into hand-to-hand fighting.
It's always good.
Yeah, there's 21 Sikhs against 10,000 Afghans. It's 8 to 10,000 of them, and they have to push them down the hill, and they get pushed up, and they push them back down. In the meanwhile, they're losing guys one by one, and by the end of it, there are like 10 soldiers left, and of course that's when the most Afghans make it up the hill. They fight them off. And there's one guy left. His name is Gurmukh Singh. He was the last Sikh defender. So the tribesmen set fire to the post, and he yells out, "One will be blessed eternally who says that God is the ultimate truth," and that's the last anyone hears of the Sikhs at Saragarhi. There is the youngest soldier there, he was like 19 years old. He jumped down, and he ended up by himself fighting off and killing 20 Afghan tribesmen.
Oh, that's crazy.
Hand to hand.
That's insane.
I mean, they'd run out of ammunition at this point. And it's just, they ended up killing 600 Afghans.
Out of how many was that originally? It was
8 to 10,000.
8 to 10,000. Like
tribesmen don't keep very detailed military records. Unfortunately,
give or take, it's still a lot.
Yeah, the British come and they just find the 21 bodies. They find the 21 Sikhs and the 600 Afghans.
Man, what a thing to walk up on.
My God, I mean, can you imagine that?
Absolutely not.
I don't think people today have a hard time comprehending the size of battles.
Yeah.
But, 600 people killed by 21?
Yeah. Plus, that's like barely a dent out of the original number.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it's nothing. That's less than 1,000. You're not even killing like a tenth of them.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Insane.
Of course, the Afghan soldiers are like, we only lost 180. Like, all right, sure you did. Both sides, you got to take this into account. Both sides fudge numbers. If you lose, you make the casualties smaller because you don't want to be embarrassed, and if you win, you're going to inflate the casualties to look a little better on yourself. So those are two last stands that I just absolutely love reading about and talking about because I just think they're so... obviously, like, Last Stand kind of things are revered in modern society and stuff, but they're just such ridiculous against the odd battles, and especially for the Sikhs. I mean, 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000. The Sikh commander says that there's 10 to 14,000.
Yeah. Either way,
I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
if it's the Afghan low number. It's still a crazy amount.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane, and I think it's pretty impressive. I do think the Battle of Camaron is more impressive just because they're not on a hill in Mexico. In Camaron, they're on the ground in a house, and that's all they have.
Yeah.
And when they do their last charge, the Mexicans are just so taken back by their bravery that they let them go.
Yeah.
The Afghans...
not so much.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Congrats, you took down 600 of us next. But the Sikhs, what they did was they bought time for the British soldiers to get together a party to fight off the Afghan soldiers that were attacking the forts. God, it's just ridiculous. And it's a theme, unfortunately, in especially Western warfare, and really all warfare, is you use your colonial troops to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
You give them the very worst and expect them to do the most.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of time, you see time and time again, they really just always, even with their, like, the low cards that they've been, given, they still do, like, of course, not to generalize, but colonial troops tend to do really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, granted, this is like, there's anecdotal evidence to that. A lot of times,
but
they get the very worst of it, right? If you look at, what's the first battle where they used Ypres? It's like Battle of Ypres.
Yeah.
Where they used gas for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first guys to experience a gas attack were Senegalese troops.
Yeah, but
they fought on them.
The Senegalese riflemen are some of France's most were some of France's most excellent
decorated units.
Yeah.
Or the Americans too, right? With the Japanese.
What was it? 442nd.
Yeah, 442nd Regimental Combat Team in World War II.
Yeah, and you see with the the Harlem Hellfighters, the African American troops in World War One.
Yeah, that's
fighting with France.
That's African American troops from the U.S. have been doing that consistently. Right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, they fought in the American Revolution, got no respect. They fought in the American Civil War, got no respect. They go over to fight for World War One. They volunteer, hoping to get some kind of, break from it. Right?
Pershing won't even put him in the army. Sends him over to France.
Well, he won't even give them American uniforms.
Yeah.
They have
partially American uniforms.
Yeah, they have American tunics, but they have French
web gear and helmets and weapons.
Yeah, which are terrible.
Oh, absolutely.
They're the lapel rifle was maybe the very worst. Yeah. And of course, they fight fantastically and strike fear into the Germans' hearts. And there's one guy, I don't remember his name. He fought off and killed he single-handedly stopped a stormtrooper assault from the Germans.
Yeah.
Okay, all he has on him is a trench knife because his pistol jammed, and with a trench knife in the middle of the night, he fights off 40 stormtroopers and kills 7 of them.
That's crazy.
They give him a Distinguished Service Cross. That's not enough for a Medal of Honor.
Nope, of course not. Anyway, that's an episode for another day.
Yeah. Well, we got kind of down a tangent, but it's just talking about the Foreign Legion, especially. They consistently do so much more with so much less.
Colonial Troops is an episode unto itself.
Yeah, we'll have to do another one. I think next time we're either going to do the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, which is pretty crazy, or the Battle of Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah.
Two more kind of epic fight to the death struggles after World War II, and then after we go over those, we'll start our World War II segment. Starting
probably around a little probably
it was gonna have to be
probably a few months off.
Yeah, that's at least 2-3 months off. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening.
Right.
Sorry we went on a little tangent there. Got off topic.
Try to make our upload schedule a little more consistent.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, so thank you for listening. Be sure to
tune in again next time.
Yeah, come back next week.